Right, so welcome everybody. Thank you for showing up. For those who don't know me, I'm Chin-Azzaro, a co-owner of Chin-Azzaro next door. And thank you very much for all being here this evening, and this is going to be epic. And thanks to our landlord who's not present right now for letting us use this space, which is really cool too. After the panel discussion, we are going to move next door to see all the work. So just keep that in mind. And without further ado, this is Yen.
Hi, thank you everybody for being here tonight. So Jermaine Dickerson is our first artist that we're venturing into the realm of showing work, and we're very, very excited. I met him actually as a graphic designer, so when I saw his illustrative and artistic renderings, I was blown away and knew that we had to have him on our roster for the year. So it is my privilege to welcome Rubenfeld, our moderator for this evening's panel discussion, What Superheroes Can Teach Us About Moral Responsibility. He is a professor emeritus of Eastern Michigan University and has curated numerous exhibits in fine art as well as comic book history. James Conniff is from Fun for All Comics in Ypsilanti. He is the resident expert on all things comics, and he was gracious enough to agree right away to do this panel with us, so we're very, very happy to have you this evening.
Well, thank you guys.
Jermaine Dickerson is the artist that's exhibiting this evening. His BFA is in graphic design. And this is Curtis Sullivan, co-owner and co-founder of Vault of Midnight, a popular comic book store in Ann Arbor that has won numerous awards nationwide. And this is Jesse Rubenfeld, an illustrator and a staple of Ypsilanti community that has been a proponent in the area, illustrator, storyboard artist, and all around. Yes, yes. So thank you all for being here this evening.
Yes, thank you very, very much for attending this evening. It's a special honor to be on the first panel for the first show. I'm happy to say that I've known two people on this panel, some longer than others, like my son Jesse. I've known him all his life. But I'm really pleased that I've had an opportunity to bring us together to talk about superheroes and art. Basically, I wanted to start off by just saying a few things. And, people who know me, a former colleague, used to tell me that I know all nothing. So I'll try not to spend too much time. But the first thing I would say is absolutely true. That is, the concept of superhero is about as old as art and literature is old. That you can go back about 5,000 years to ancient Sumer in Mesopotamia. In the Gilgamesh epic, you could go, a couple of thousand years later to, Beowulf, the epic poem. You can move into the 19th century with, great romantic heroes like Ivanhoe and Hawkeye, and into the 20th century with the comics. And although the term superhero is one that is relatively new, I think, that the idea of some hero who's sort of larger than life, who represents what is good in society, is something that goes back thousands of years. The second one is more an observation. I can't say it's an absolute truth, but I believe it is. And that is that art is always an expressive barometer, that consciously and unconsciously, artists tell you a lot about themselves, when they live, where they live, what their moral issues are, what is considered heroic or important. Again, you can go through history and note many, many examples, and you look at these and see that a work of art is a kind of document of the times. So it seems to me that we're on very, very strong grounding here for this, panel discussion. So what I wanted to start off with, and every time I've done panel discussions, they've not been rehearsed, and I like to keep them spontaneous. And if you don't want to answer something, I don't have that many questions, but you can just pass on to the next person. And if you're absolutely anxious to be the first to respond, then gesture or do something, and I'll call on you. But first of all, what I would ask each of you here is, how would you define superhero? And can you give an example in life, in art, in the comics and films or whatever? How would you define what a superhero is? So, do you want to start off, Jake?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess a superhero is what a individual who has, either through birth, accident, or through perseverance and training, has extraordinary abilities, either special powers or just beyond human capabilities, and something that use their powers to help others and do good.
Okay. You want to give an example, something that you would feel would
Oh, I suppose
represent that?
easy ones being this is Spider-Man or the X-Men.
Okay, okay. Jermaine,
Yeah,
the featured artist.
I would say something similar to what James said, but I think bringing it back to home with more, with actual, real leaders in society such as Gandhi and Dr. King, who are extraordinary people, because not a lot of people can stand up towards the opposition that they stood up against during their time. They face tons of different death threats. They face life-threatening circumstances almost every day because of what they truly believed in. And those, for me, would be deemed as superheroes. And of course, I can say someone like Superman or a comic book character, but these are the characters that these fictional characters were inspired by. And so their extraordinary tendencies inspire some more extraordinary tendencies in these actual fictional characters. And I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. I would agree with, I think, the combination of both those things. Somebody who does good for the sake of good. There's no reward, there's no other reason other than, taking the high ground and wanting to do good at all costs. So like real life examples of that, like Jermaine pointed out. And then comic books, I think, extrapolate that and then maybe throw some flying and some laser beam eyes into the mix. But yeah, I think absolutely. Yeah, and like you say, they've endured for so long, these stories. It's modern mythology, so yeah, I think it still has a place, yeah.
I would just add that I think that superheroes, their character, their driving force is so much so that they have to do good. They're forced to do good. It's not become a choice, but it's just become what they are. And that can go into Spider-Man, great power, great responsibility, or you go as simple as someone like a firefighter who they know that they can jump into a burning building and save someone, even though it's completely likely that they could get hurt or killed. They still feel compelled that they have to do that sort of thing.
Well, I know, 14 years ago, there were efforts upon the part of major comics publishers to connect real-life situations with fiction of superheroes, largely, but not totally, a response to 9/11, and an effort to bring the two together. Do you think that this is a plausible approach to the superhero? I don't know anything about, how popular they were, how well they sold, did the public, find these to be, important to them, satisfying. How do you respond to that? I mean, this connection between the real world and the fantasy world of superheroes.
Yeah, I mean, Amazing Spider-Man, I guess right after the September 11th attacks, had the black cover memorial issue, and throughout that entire issue, Spider-Man goes on his long monologues talking about how the importance of the heroism of firefighters and policemen, on that day, regular people who felt compelled that they had to do this thing. They didn't have a choice but to run into danger, run into death, and help other people. Yeah, you even have people like Brian K. Vaughan with his Ex Machina series, dealing with some similar things, in New York with superheroes and, time politics and all that.
Okay. Anybody else want to respond to that? Does that mixture work?
What's that?
Does the mixture, the attempt to connect real world with superheroes, is that an acceptable approach? Is that something that has captured the public's attention? Do you believe that such an attempt is successful?
Yeah, I think it definitely can be, and comics are very reflective of their time. I mean, like most things, books or movies, but if you go back over the decades of comic books, I mean, they're very reflective of their era, not just fashion, but political points of view, social movements. So yeah, I think they resonate, and sometimes kind of come and go as the things go. As the pain of 9/11 and that thing fades from our memory as time goes. It loses its relevance in comic books, but yeah, heck yeah. Yeah, I think definitely. It's worth doing. Comics are really good that way, and they come out so quick. You know, something happens, 30 days later, you can have, 2 weeks later, you can have a book that's relevant and kind of talking about what's going on. So.
Strike while the iron is hot.
Yeah, and not just from a commercial aspect, but definitely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's fresh in your mind, and it's the short distance between writing something and getting out to the reader's hands. It's important, I think.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I think even going on outside of the comic books, how these characters have touched actual people. I recall the story about a little boy who, I forgot his name, I think it was Jeffrey Baldwin, he was around 4 or 2 years old, and he was abused by his grandparents. Because something happened with his parents, so his grandparents took him in, and they starved him to death. And during the time of his abuse, he held on to characters like Superman and helped him get through it. And so that, though this was a fictional character, the principles that he stood for were very real. And so it allowed him to sort of get through the pain, even though he still, lost battle at the end. But and even my own experience, just going through, growing up in a society that tells me because I'm a black male that I can't do certain things, that I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. So by me wearing that S on my chest, I felt super strong. I felt that I could fight against those odds, those really strong obstacles, that I was something greater than myself. I was a Superman. So me wearing the costume was just more than just pretending to have superpowers and whatnot. It was something much deeper for me, and I think other people can feel the same way too.
So the superhero can be a role model, it can be an ideal, someone to inspire you, to help you through difficult times. I'm just curious. I mean, I've been looking, reading, watching superhero stuff since about the time I was 4 years old. And you don't want to know how old I am, but it's a long time. I would sort of bet my life, I think, on the fact that everybody on this panel, and most of you, if not all of you, in the audience here has had experience with superheroes, if not, literally meeting a real-life superhero, but certainly the fictional superheroes. Can you briefly, each of us, tell us about your experience with superheroes? What was it about those comic books or those movies or those TV shows? We can get to real life as well, but I'm curious at this point, what was it about these things that triggered the response in you? So I don't know what order or...
I'll start because I think you're most familiar with my love of superheroes. Apple didn't fall far from the tree, but I can say that from very, very early age, Superman was a big part of my life. I had quite a few capes growing up. Mother who would make me Halloween costumes every year of various obscurity of superheroes. So I think the four-color heroes have always been a part of my life, and just even before I could read, comics were read to me. So I guess I just fell in love with the characters and what they stood for, even back then.
Awesome. Yeah, my uncle gave me a giant stack of Savage Sword of Conan magazines when I was very young. We didn't have a lot of money, so I had very little access to fiction, I guess. We had little to no TV, little to no books. So Conan the Barbarian was a real eye-opener. I mean, just fantasy worlds and characters, and this guy traveled and sailed on ships and fought in armies and had all these grand adventures. I'd never encountered anything similar at that point, so it pretty much changed the trajectory of my whole life. I mean, I definitely wouldn't be sitting in this room right now without Conan the Barbarian. And not the superhero you typically think of. No powers. His power was the loincloth. Very nice loincloth. But it changed the whole thing for me. And then, we got some TV, and then Thunder the Barbarian and Super Friends. But I believed all that stuff. I mean, everybody can vividly remember a cardboard box being whatever they wanted it to be, like actually a spaceship or a robot. And, that changed the whole game. I totally believed it. And I'm regressing. Like, I got to the point where I wanted it to be all real. I want real stuff, and I'm totally going back to Crypto the Superdog, and I want it to be cartoonishly not real.
Yeah, I think my first, if I recall correctly, my first exposure to the comic book superhero world was the Superman the movie. I don't know, it just something was so mesmerizing about Superman. And then after that, I always had a really vivid imagination. Before that, I was already drawing. I already would create my own characters. I would already create my own sort of world. So the fact that I could explore other people's versions or other people's worlds and creations, it was something even more interesting to that I could get attached to. And then like I was telling James, I was always going in and out of comics and watching the movies, watching the television series. And for me, I love Dragon Ball Z. I think it was a terrible show actually.
It's amazingly bad.
Yeah, it is. I loved, Pokemon, all that stuff that, just that fantasy stuff. But some of the things I actually did outgrow, but superheroes, I couldn't because the worlds that they live in the comic books are just so awesome, so diverse, and it's such a very wide range of different stories that you can tell. There's a lot of different genres that are involved within that sort of mega genre. So.
Yeah, just real quick, I still get a little misty. I want to hear the Pokemon theme song. Me and my daughter both, because you talk about Virtuous, right? I mean, that's a really powerful anthem to be the best. It's like no one ever was. I mean, that's inspirational still. So yeah.
So some of the message of superhero comics even transcends superhero comics, goes to anime, to something like Pokemon.
Which seems like maybe benign to somebody who you just kind of gloss it over. But if you get in there, there's a powerful message there, especially if you're younger too, maybe. But I don't know. I'm old and
No, you have children and you through it another time.
yeah.
I think there are good messages even in something like Pokemon. I mean, you get loyalty and friendship, and I feel like there's just things to latch on to, especially if you're interested in comics at that age. I mean, I think everybody who's into this at one point or another felt like an outsider, like you didn't quite belong, but you find Peter Parker or somebody. For me, that's who it was. It's like this poor guy. He's just got the worst luck in the world. Like these terrible things always happen to him, but no matter how bad things get, Parker never quits. He never gives up. He'll lift the impossibly heavy thing off of himself to save his aunt. Whenever he's flat broke, has no money, finds some way to scratch by and just never give up. And I guess I'm sure I'm not alone in hoping every single day I got home from school there'd be a bulb man with a wheelchair. You don't have to go back to that school. I have to say, this is my preferred institute if things turned out the way I wanted. An alumni of the Xavier School for Visual Justice.
So what was your power being though?
Ooh, I always, teleportation, I guess, always wanted to get out of bad spots, or maybe slowing time would be better, so you get super speed, you essentially have teleportation that way. You get to cheat if you have time manipulation powers, so.
I didn't think about that, but what
I always thought that one of my favorite characters growing up, Pack comic, was Power Pack, because I grew up at a prime time where I was about the kid's age when I started reading it and kind of grew up, and I always thought the character Zero G, who could control gravity himself and things around him, so he could be super strong by lifting something up and making it weightless, or he could float off into the sky. I always thought that would be a fun thing to do. Scratch my super strength and flight in one power. For one special.
Yeah.
You gotta stretch those powers. Not everybody's lucky to be Superman and get the whole, package.
That's the full package, the full combo.
Well, I can remember, it was a series that was introduced in the 60s that's been revived, one of the ones called Dial H for Hero. And it was a guy, I think Robbie Reed, who was very benign, sort of upper middle class suburban white boy who had this gizmo that each time he dialed it, he got to be a different superhero and superpowers. And I thought, well, that would be really cool because you would never get bored. You never quite knew what you would become. And I thought that was a fantasy that at least worked for me. I wanted to touch upon, heroic behavior, role models, in the context of more recent developments in the mythos of superheroes. Specifically, I would say in the last couple of decades, at least since, people like Alan Moore started writing things like The Dark Knight Return, Frank Miller, I'm sorry, Dark Knight Returns, and Watchmen by Alan Moore, introduced an idea which I think is very, very postmodern, and that is to take things, characters that have been established as heroic and good, and give them a very, very different twist, making them flawed individuals, often individuals who are truly tragic, who might have the special powers, the strength, the abilities of flight or whatever, but might not be considered worthy of having such powers. And I'm just curious, how does the notion of superhero fit in with these characters? I wouldn't call them villains per se, although some of them could be. Characters who are larger than life, who are endowed with these incredible abilities, who do not necessarily do things heroically. They may, save people and charge them money, or they, might be very, tuned in, or, very violent people who, would resort to unlawful methods in order to get their results. How do you respond to that in the context of the superhero? Because I think there are many, many examples. I think of Mark Miller's stuff today, in particular, of these great characters, but not particularly heroic. How does that fit?
I mean, there's some characters I think that, especially in Alan Moore's work, you look at characters like Dr. Manhattan, who originally, was created from Captain Atom. But he's got that personality where if you had that much power, how could you stay connected to your humanity?
Right.
Where Superman's on the opposite side of that, where he always seems to, find that grounding, that desire to, love humanity and take care of humanity. That his better nature shines through. At least, for the most part, better in the comics. But hey, characters like Doc Manhattan, where if you were that powerful, how could you not look at everybody as being that big? How could that not make you detached?
Somebody like the comedian in the same series.
Gosh, who's does heroic things, but also he's a racist and he's violent. And just his actions are abhorrent.
And he's definitely a Republican and a huge fan of Nixon, which I really didn't key in until the last time I read that book. He definitely has some other views that are very unsavory, probably racist, probably homophobe. Yeah. So, yes. Sorry to put in there. But,
Oh, no worries.
That's what panelist discussion is about.
Yeah. That guy's a jerk.
Well, I think the idea of absolute power can corrupt absolutely is definitely a tale that is nothing new in comics these days. But I think the time of Alan Moore and Frank Miller's inception of those the beginning of the new era, modern era of comics, really kind of tried to turn everything on its head and turn inwards on ourselves and think about, okay, well, really, if superheroes existed, if I was a superhero, chances are I would probably do some stuff that wouldn't be the best, because normal people's moral code is not necessarily as absolute as, say, someone as morally strict as a Superman character, for example. Some people might use their X-ray vision to look into a women's locker room. Superman would never do that, but an ordinary person might, or something that's about as vanilla as I can come up with, or something being...
Okay.
Well, to be fair, if I could stop time, I probably would just go play cards and cheat to become a millionaire at the casino. It's like victimless crime, rip off the casino, make a bunch of money. Casinos aren't good, but it's probably not what Superman would do with that.
Yeah, I think that's what's so appealing to characters like Superman to me now, especially, I don't know, the older I get. I think it's the neatest concept that somebody with unlimited power would be able to remain morally upright, if you will. That's amazing to me. I love it. All-Star Superman is my favorite Superman comic of all time. And so Superman gets cancer in this book. Lex Luthor tricks him, and he gets cancer, and he's going to die. And the only way he can kind of somehow stay alive is live in the heart of the sun, which Luthor has kind of destroyed. And so he becomes this like Vitruvian sort of a man at the end of this book, keeping the sun alive and saving all humanity. And it's just impossibly awesome, And this is a character, again, with the abilities like you could just do anything, smash worlds and rule universes, but has no desire for any of that. It's pretty amazing. And like Captain America is the other side of that. I just in love with the Boy Scout. the older I get, I want more of, or the Girl Scout, you know, characters that, yeah, are not corrupted. Because it's easy, human beings, it's easy to take that route and go, hey, I would rob a bank or, you know, make people my slaves or, you know, it's way less exciting to me.
Yeah, sorry.
No.
You brought up Lex Luthor, like, he's another, like, even though he doesn't have any superpowers, just his mentality, he's rich, he's a genius, he has essentially everything that a normal human being would want, but he wants more. He wants the power that Superman has, and even when he does, he did obtain it at one point, it just corrupted him. I mean, it just, lessons like that, I think, it's really interesting, that, you know, when you have, I'm trying to think of another character, like Lex Luthor, the Joker, even though he does not have the same sort of amount of powers as, say, Superman does, but just the psychology behind characters like him. I mean, I'm trying to put into words exactly what I'm losing my train of thought, but you can go ahead and figure it out. Yeah, I'm sorry.
He's the artist, he's
Yeah.
Characters are so like like in some ways like so amoral.
Yeah.
Like there's good aspects of Luthor where he's like this guy who just like pushes himself and strives to do good things. There's like nothing redeeming about the Joker. He's just like, you know, vile and evil. But I have to agree with their Curtis, where it's like the kid growing up, like I didn't get Captain America. I didn't get like Superman's like cool, but he didn't. It's like as a Boy Scout, he always does the right thing, but
Nobody can beat him, he's so strong.
but the longer you just go on, you're just like, you know what? I kind of want the guy who is incorruptible. Like Captain America is this idyllic form of like American morality.
Yeah.
Like when you always like other than like the 50s like Commie Crusher stuff, you know, which they
Sure.
recommend out. You know, he's this guy who's always on the right side of things. He's always looking out for like the little guy.
You know, and the thing that gets missed about Captain America a lot is he's the idea of America that never was.
Yeah.
Like when you read the Declaration, or you know, when you hear the ideal of America, right, where it's land of the free, home of the brave, we can all do it, we're all in it together. That's never existed, really. You know, and Cap is, people look at him like a propaganda tool, I think, more so than he really is. I mean, he definitely was that at times, more so than others, but the fact that he's actually, you know, a walking Statue of Liberty, you know, the real deal, the real America that we dream about is so awesome to me.
Well, absolutely, and Superman as well kind of exemplifies some of those American traits that, you know, the immigrant son who will be accepted and loved. And, like, you can bring your great gifts here, and you will, like, you know, we will wrap our arms around you. We will take you in, even if these, I mean, what we're 75 plus years later, it's still not the case.
Yeah. Steve Rogers is an Irish immigrant too. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, born in Brooklyn. That's a pretty cool story. Yeah. So again, the immigrant story, young American story. Very cool.
Okay. Anybody else? Well, another, of course, a trend that I think has, you know, been around for a while, but very, very prominent today, and that is to introduce more characters that are diverse, characters, men and women, characters of different ethnic groups, religions, and all that, as these key characters, even transforming characters of old into men, women, black, Asian, whatever. What do you think about that trend in comics and films today?
I'm such a big fan of that. I mean, just off the top of my head, I mean, Kamala Khan from Marvel Comics, the new Miss Marvel is just, you know, new character. You know, she's got powers that you've already seen before, but the way she's been presented, you know, Pakistani American from Jersey, has shape-shifting powers, who's trying to adhere to her parents' traditions, but also is like a modern American teenager. It's just like, it's really great, you know, great new character, and it's just when a lot of these superheroes were created in the past. I mean, Stan Lee, I mean, he did a book about, you know, like civil rights issues, but he did it with 5 white teenagers because that was just the sensibilities of the comic readers at the time. They weren't going to read a book with a minority cast, so he put these issues through with a bunch of white characters. And we're at a point now where creating a new white character is just like, everybody's got a Peter Parker. Like, we need more Miles Moraleses as Spider-Man. You know, we need more Kamala Khans out there than we need, you know, another Peter Parker, another Scott Summers.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, until media across the board reflects what's happening like on the ground, I mean, it's predominantly male Caucasians. I mean, lead actors, lead super, you know. Kamala Khan, the writer G. Willow Wilson's a Muslim American, so she really, I think that book is not contrived in any way. I think it's just spot on. Another example of how comic books are really reflective of, the times that we're in, and the talent that's around them. That's one of the best-selling books in our comic shop.
Same here, yeah. We were
Totally deserves it.
Awesome.
Yeah. A female Muslim superhero. I mean,
And she's young too.
young.
Yeah.
It's a great book. I mean, everybody should check it out. But yeah, I don't know if we could have done that even. I mean, what, 5 years ago? Could you even pull off this?
Still
Yeah.
after September 11th.
DC had their milestone imprint with
Sure. Yeah.
Static Shock
Yeah.
and Dwayne McDuffie's characters. I mean, I think he even prior to Miss Marvel, which is also a great book. So I think that it's not the newest of new ideas. It's just now starting to pick up speed, finally,
Sell and get.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. Get,
and
in
get
front
the
of
attention
people.
it deserves.
Absolutely, you're right.
And for a long time, there's been this issue of the lack of black writers and the lack of diversity within comic books. And there's, even within Hollywood, it's just the same thing with comic books. Just this, for some reason, the politics behind the scenes where these writers of color would walk into these publishers and say, I have this idea for a character, can I write this character? And for some reason, they'll get denied the service. And so when you see characters like Black Panther or other characters of color who aren't selling well or who weren't being written well at the time, they and some of the publishers kind of question exactly why was the case. Some people made theories either it was because the writer behind the actual character was not a character of color, so therefore they can't relate to the character, or it was something else. So I think lately, Dwayne McDuffie, I wish DC would have pushed the milestone imprint a lot more than they did, because he did some amazing things with DC Comics. They tried to revive some of their characters in the beginning of the New 52. Didn't work out as well.
Yeah, I know.
But and even Dwayne McDuffie, he pushed for John Stewart in the Justice League series. But I think it's just it's so funny when you mention these things and there's an outcry from the fan base. Oh, you're being racist, this and that. I published an article a while ago talking about how I think that there's a lack of characters of color, or characters of color are not represented enough or been misrepresented in comic books. And I talked a little bit about the history and how at one point in time black characters were given this sort of stereotypical depiction of the large lips, the big noses, and I said, we've come a long ways from that. Certainly, like with characters like Black Panther and even like Zada and Black Superman. I mean, we still have a lot of room to go because Kamala Khan is certainly a wonderful book. She's certainly a step in the right direction, but. And I feel that DC and Marvel and even some of the independent companies are pushing more for a diverse audience because the population in the entire world is mostly women. Studies have shown that in the next 40 or something years, the white population would have been decreasing. A lot of people would, and most people will be of color, either interracial or so. The demographics are changing, but for some reason, the executive or the publishers in these higher positions, they seem disconnected from this information, so they feel the need to stay and comfortable with where they are. But I can see the change happening slowly and surely. But I just wish it would happen a lot more faster. And again, even the films are an example of this. How many white male protagonists have we had in films, in period, even outside of the superhero genre?
Yeah.
And when you, Scarlett Johansson, as great of an actress as she is, she was cast as in Ghost in the Shell. And, I mean, and that's an Asian character. I mean, why would you do something like that?
You're gonna set it in New York, I think, too. It's gonna.
No, that's not okay. See,
Nobody, Americans, we can't watch a movie set in Tokyo. No.
Oh no, nobody has the attention for that.
Exactly.
yeah, they think that people aren't willing to either these people people can connect, people who are non-white or not a male, or I don't know what the deal is, but like I said, I'm so glad that I'm seeing things changing slowly but surely, and it's drawing me back into that world, and I really do appreciate it.
Well, and I think somebody mentioned the talent pool. It was predominantly Caucasian and male, as far as writers and artists and editors
exactly.
at these places.
Yeah.
So like Kamala Khan's creator, G. Willow Wilson, is the first woman to be signed to an exclusive contract
Isn't she
with Marvel.
Muslim herself, though?
What's that?
Isn't she Muslim herself?
She is.
Okay.
Yeah, so I saw a picture of like they do this Marvel writers retreat, you know, and it's a photo of all of them, and it's, you know, 8 45-year-old white males and G. Willow Wilson.
Yeah.
You know, so the gatekeepers are maybe the folks that are
Yeah.
to blame for where we are.
Didn't you just get a spot as like head of like character development too?
Something.
Yeah,
Yep.
something where like these guys have to like walk up to her desk and go, well, I want to do this with this character. She gets to go, no, guys, no,
Yeah.
you're not doing that with that
She
character.
just took over X-Men too. So she's about 3 issues into X-Men. So, you know, things are happening, you know, we'll see.
I'm looking forward to that.
Another 40, 60, 80 years, you know, whatever.
Yeah. I think you probably know a lot of this too about Image Comics. They've got so many great female leads in that.
It's outrageous.
I mean, you got
Yeah.
Velvet. I mean, Jenny over in Pretty Deadly.
Yep.
Geez, I mean, Saga. That cast is just so diverse.
Yep.
And it's just really great to see. I mean, even like 10 years ago, like point to the books on the rack that have like a female lead character. And you rack your brain.
Yeah, and it's like you were saying, I mean, even 5 years ago maybe,
Okay.
it's strange how, you know, we baby step our way in so many things, you know, as a people or whatever, you know, but yeah, 5 years ago, I don't know if Image could do what they're doing, you know, so, yeah.
I mean, why do you guys think that, the big two are like kind of slowly lagging behind when it comes to diversity?
So here's a weird thing, I'm gonna just, we have had a lot of backlash about female Thor.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of backlash about Sam Wilson, a black Captain America. We've actually had customers who are like, what is happening? And I literally had somebody tell me why are they turning everyone black? I was asked that question in a comic store.
Well, I think
It's outrageous. It's one character, and it's Sam Wilson. He's the guy, he's Falcon. He's the dude who should be the next Captain America.
and he's not the first black Captain
Absolutely.
America.
The first Captain America was black, you know. Yeah, so, but there is a strange, they're taking all our stuff. Undercurrent to, it's just bizarre, yeah.
Well, I think it's also partially, they are the big two because they have been around a lot longer than a lot of the other publishers, so they have continuity. That's kind of a dirty word in some comic circles of lots of white male superheroes for 70 plus years, and a lot of the, unless there's momentum for a change, I think a lot of the time the big two are white Superman sells, so Superman's going to stay white.
Yeah, if it's not broke, don't fix it,
Yeah,
right?
which it's great that Marvel's branching out. And
Well, yeah, it looks like Kurt's saying, Falcon, he's Cap's partner longer than anybody, longer than
Yeah.
Falcon was during World War II. So if anybody should wear the red, white, and blue and carry that shield, it's Falcon, not
Totally.
anybody in that universe. And like a female Thor, it's like, so are you saying a woman can't be worthy to lift the hammer? I mean, it seems ridiculous to me.
That was, I think that's how the backlash for that was crazy.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's one of the. We've had it a few different times. We've had to, try to sell people on this. Like, no, it's actually really cool, and I never expected to have that conversation. That said, female Thor is selling twice as good as male Thor.
Yeah.
Let's,
There it is.
I want to get to the basic theme of this panel. I want to leave that, and that has to do with the real world and how superheroes have an impact on us. Do superheroes teach us ethical behavior? What is the relationship between the superhero and moral responsibility? And your exhibition is entitled Virtuous, and in your artist statement you talk a bit about that. Do you want to start us off here, and then others can respond to that?
Yeah, the pieces that are in there, they touch on topics dealing with, the black hypermasculinity, things dealing with, femininity, things dealing with homophobia, a wide range of things. And sometimes these are things that people don't exactly correlate with being virtuous. James was asking me about the Ferguson piece. Was that you? Asking about the Ferguson piece. I was explaining to him that, in Ferguson we have all these different protests and stuff that have been happening, and people are angry, and rightfully so. So a lot of times people express this anger through violent means, either it be looting or something like that, and these things happen all the time. But you also have the group of people who are peacefully protesting. The point of me making that sort of piece was just to say that In the face of something that is inherently evil, in the midst of a dark time or a dark tragedy, such as what happened with Ferguson and anything like that, how hard, how difficult is it for you to remain virtuous, to be kind, or to be humble towards the person that committed the crime to you? Because sometimes in this situation we have, with Ferguson, a white man killed a black man, so therefore all white people are racist, and you have these race wars going on and things like that. And you have a group of people over here saying, no, this is not what it is. But those voices are kind of being left out, and it's so hard, when you are, especially within the black community, there's this sense of how can I say? Well, the defensiveness that black people we need to have because of the amount of prosecution we've been feeling a long time, the intersectionality we've been going through a long time. So we feel the need to be defensive. But people like Dr. King, who says, okay, I understand your pain. I've gone through your pain, but the easiest or the hardest thing for you to do is to rise up above that and look for a more peaceful means. And that's what it means to be virtuous. When someone hits you in the face, of course you want to hit them back. That's a natural thing to do, but the hardest thing for you to do in that moment is to react non-violently. That's what it means to be virtuous. When someone kills someone that you love, a murderer, they smile at you in the face and say, I don't care what happened to your loved one. I killed them out of cold blood, so what? And the natural thing for you to be is angry. You want to hurt that person as they hurt your loved one. But the hardest thing to do is to remain humble and to be virtuous. I think I've been thinking about this for a long time. We have this innate evil inside of us, which is why it's so hard. The good people are so hard to find, which is why it's so easy to succumb to your anger. It's why it's so easy to give into your rage. So the hardest thing to do is to be a good and decent person. That's why we have superheroes to inspire us, because we need that inspiration. When living in a dark world, when living in a time when you feel like the opposition is, the opposing forces are going against you consistently, you need someone to hold your hand and say, I got you. Let me show you the way. And that's what the series is essentially about. I hope that makes sense. It's a lot more, but yeah, that's the basis of everything. Yeah.
I'd like to add specifics for comics. I also think that they offer you this moral compass, but just like you're worked up about something not going well and you want to let off steam, you can get angry about it, or you can watch Hulk destroy a building. And that might just be enough for you to not go, I don't need to hit anything. Maybe I'll just watch Hulk do this with Loki and and diffuse some of that anger.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to open this
Yes.
time up to the audience and ask your questions of our panel. Any questions?
I have a comment that I noticed just with kind of white males being predominantly in comics. I think it's almost a vicious circle. I mean, just going through art school myself and stuff, it's predominantly white males going into art school, or it was, at least. Now it's kind of leaning more towards females, but kind of white males creating comic books for white males, and it's kind of this vicious circle because even myself growing up, I kind of didn't exactly identify with all of the superheroes because they're these big muscular men, and me being like an 11-year-old girl, I'm like, okay. So I think it could almost be kind of this vicious circle where white males are making comics for white males and not really kind of identifying with other groups, and that's why it's taking so much longer than it should to kind of break away from like superhero comics being predominantly aimed towards white males. You guys kind of think that might be a little bit of it?
Would it be true just with comics? Would you say that's true of a lot of the entertainment world, the mass media? That traditionally white male creators intended for largely white male audiences.
Well,
the dearth of female film directors. for the many, many years, and, authors who are female, using non-plume and or just initials so that people don't know that they're women. Would you agree that something that does go beyond just the comic book world?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me personally, it's just kind of like, why haven't we broken away from this white male predominantly in media and stuff? I feel like it should, like, just me personally, like, this should have happened 20 years ago, you know?
Because we're comfortable, that's why. Because
Yeah.
we don't want to change, we don't, like they mentioned, we don't want to change if we feel we don't need to change. And it's hard to break out of that, and when people try to change that, they are deemed as annoying, they are deemed as, you're stupid, why are you doing this,
Yeah.
Stop it. It happens.
It's like Chris was talking about with female Thor. I had a customer from the store farm. He's like, why is Thor a girl now? It's like, because you already like Thor, and so you're hopefully going to keep reading Thor if it's good. But maybe, just maybe, by having this character out there for somebody else, someone will get interested and will join our world. Or it's such an exclusive club sometimes.
Well, and the worst thing about that is this: the writer who's writing. She's just called Thor. She's not Thorette or Lady Thor. She's just Thor. It's the same writer who's been doing it for years. It's a guy named Jason Aaron. It's all part of the story. It's not this contrived, let's make Thor a lady because maybe, it just...
Loki's tricks or something.
Whatever. It works. It's part of the natural progression of this story. So the weird thing about people getting angry about it is that they're getting angry about it. I find that just very odd. But they're outsiders who aren't even really, they profess this love of this character. Like, they're insiders, like they have this claim to this character, but they obviously haven't been reading the comic book because this is the story that's been brewing for, over 2 years.
Yeah.
In the monthly Thor comic book. So it's strange.
It really is, because I feel like it does keep some people out. We joked around with one of our old clerks at the shop, Rose, and she talking about some books, and then she was like laughing, Rose, come on, girls don't read comics.
Yeah.
Right to her, and she's like, oh, guys, and it's like, we don't actually believe that. But she's like, you have to poke fun at it. She's like, guys, what the heck, what's wrong with that? And it's like, oh, just girls don't read them. And it's like, but maybe if you have titles out there for people to attach to, like your Kamala Khans, or your Velvets, or your Thor, or your Goddess of Thunder. Yeah, if you're going to bring some more people in, there will be more female comic writers, there will be more female characters, there will be more characters that are more diverse to represent people better. But yeah, we hope things are changing, but we're definitely not fast enough.
Yeah, and I think that's, like you're saying, is stay in art school and then make comics, right?
Yeah, please do.
It's the talent that's gonna change it from the inside. It's these editorial boards and the talent that's gonna move the needle, because otherwise, yeah, it's the same bunch of old dudes. So, yeah, don't give up, do comics, go to art school.
Yeah, I agree.
I have two little girls who are comic book readers. They too tend to pick things that are a little more off the beaten path. We got one that used to be an internet comic. It was Panda X or something like that. I don't know if you guys have seen that one. It's really cute. The hero is this little girl in a robotic panda.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm curious, what do you guys think about how are independent comics kind of changing the field a little bit? And do you think it's, obviously more diversity is for the good in general, but how do you guys feel about it?
I think that with the advent of the internet and the ability that everyone has an audience now, and independent comics pretty much, when I did my comic series back in 2007, it was, web comics were very much having come up and were really starting to become prevalent, which they're even more so now. And if you were in art school, it used to be you would have to send portfolios in all the big publishers and hope that maybe someone would like your work long enough to maybe put you in a backup story somewhere. Now you can make the comic. You can get 20 copies printed, bring them to a comic shop. I remember Vault of Midnight being very much pro-indie comics, one of the first comic shops I know of that was very much like, there are more comics out there than DC, Marvel, Dark Horse, and Image. That there's plenty out there that are now, they're voices that can be heard because our world shrank with the advent of the internet. So I think the momentum is only going to gain steam.
Yeah, and I would say to that, this is the golden age of comics right now, and I think the breadth and width of what's happening in the medium it's never been this cool. I mean, it's ridiculous. So it can be better, obviously, from a diversity standpoint, but I could probably pick 5 or 10 books for every single sex and age group. You know, come into the store, I'm sure you would feel the same way.
Absolutely.
In Lumberjanes or Being Puppy Cat, Help Us Great Warrior. I mean, there's just a ton of kick-ass. The Unbeatable Squirrel Girls over at Marvel Comics right now. It's about a young lady who has the proportionate strength and vision of a squirrel. She's got a giant squirrel tail. She's unbeatable. She's beat Galactus. She's fought Kraven the Hunter.
Did you fight Thanos too?
She's defeated Thanos. Yep. She's the first week at college. It's just an outrageously funny, cool, smart book. I'd put it in the hands of any human being who would listen. You know.
You're just completely right about that too. Like it's the golden age was like way back when, but it's really the best era of comics.
Yeah, and it's getting better every day. So yeah.
Like just like you're saying, there's a book out there for everybody. I mean, you can find out what somebody reads or watches on TV or movies they like, and if you can't point them to a few books, like then I guess you as a retailer or clerk, you need to be reading some more comics because there's just so much great stuff out there.
I think Jesse's right too. The web comic scene has just exploded things. Help Us Great Warrior is a web comic now in print. Katie Cook from Ann Arbor is now doing Adventure Time and
all those cool variants over at Marvel.
Gronk.
Yeah, those are all local web comic people. So yeah, I mean, yeah, the web is the gates are there's a lot more gates, and the internet is destroying those gates. And by that I mean, the boardroom of the 5 guys who control Marvel or DC. They're becoming less and less relevant.
Because fans are voicing their opinions out there for the good or the bad, but yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's got character. Go.
I'm wondering if we could have elaboration from the panelists on graphic novels or comics that do not necessarily narrate around superheroes, but still can communicate a social or introspective message, and like, where do you see them fitting into the grand scheme of like where we can push comics? Because I mean, like Mouse and like R. Crumb's work is kind of autobiographical. I'm just interested. Yeah, I'm just interested in like how each of you feel it fits into this conversation, or if at all.
Well, I mean, I guess off the top of my head, I really enjoy the book Saga that's coming out right now. I mean, it's a serialized book, but it comes out in trade. It's just such a fantastic title. But the characters is essentially star-crossed lovers, kind of Romeo and Juliet in space, but it's more like an Israeli-Palestine conflict in space. And these two characters who, both of their societies, just deem that they shouldn't be together, and it's about families and relationships. And it's not about it is about TV-headed robots with like PTSD, but it's also about so much stuff. And anybody can read it. If you like superhero stuff, you can read this. If you disdain like the 4-color heroes and capes and tights and masks, you're probably gonna still love this book. It's just kind of crosses everything as long as you're old enough to read it. Do not give it to your kids, please. But it's everybody else. Please read it. It's down.
Well, thank you all so much. I'm sure you all want to ask more questions and talk to our panelists. But if we could encourage everybody to go next door and grab a snack and something to drink, we'll be right over. Thank you so much.